All right, so the recording is on. Okay, so welcome everyone again. Um, as those of you who are familiar with the series know that we have explored through multiple speakers and talks various forms of vulnerability from migrant labor to climate change, animal and other forms of vulnerability. We are making a slight shift today in having with us a person from the science division. We have assiduously stayed away from the sciences when we talk about vulnerability. And in particular, the role of the organization UNESCO in examining, documenting, proposing guidelines for what Dr. Boer and his company refer to as uh, uh, triple planetary crisis, which includes biodiversity, erosion and loss, climate change, and of course, ecosystem pollution. So this is like I said, a major shift in what has usually been the topic and subject of our talks here. Welcome to all of you, and in particular, welcome to Dr. Boer. Though I'm in the middle of his schedule, he has managed to find time for this, though I'm sure it's a respite from constant meetings and emails. It's a different form of time spent. So I will now hand this over to Atul Nair, who's our project assistant with UNESCO Chair. I would also like to introduce you to Professor Anna Korean, who is faculty fellow in the UNESCO Chair of Vulnerability Studies. Anna, please meet Dr. Benno Boer, Chief of the Natural Science Unit at UNESCO New Delhi. Over to you, Atul, and welcome one and all.
Thank you, sir, and welcome once again, Dr. Boer, to our talk today. And may I formally introduce the speaker to the audience. Dr. Benno Boer holds BSc and MSc degrees in biology from the University of Osnabrück and a PhD in physical geography from the University of Paderborn. He has worked in several positions in the area of ecology and anthropogenic impacts on ecosystems in Germany, Ethiopia, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Thailand, and the UAE, including 20 years with UNESCO. He currently serves as the Chief of the Natural Sciences Unit at UNESCO New Delhi, and his talk today is titled Citing Vulnerability, Natural Science at UNESCO New Delhi. Over to you, Dr. Boer.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. First of all, I would like to express my gratitude to Professor Pramod Nair. Many thanks, dear Pramod. I really appreciate that. We met each other recently in Bhubaneswar for the first time, but we were already in touch with each other. So many thanks for inviting UNESCO and me personally to be able to talk about citing vulnerabilities and how that relates to the UNESCO natural science work that we are carrying out here at UNESCO in New Delhi. So I'll try to share my presentation. There we go. It should be visible to everybody now. Can you please just confirm that you can see it and that you can hear me as well?
We can hear you, but yes, now we can see you as well, see the presentation as well.
Excellent. So you can see the presentation now as well, yeah?
Yes.
Very good, then I can continue. So citing vulnerability is, of course, a very complex theme. So I'm relating this to I'm telling you something about UNESCO and the natural science at UNESCO, and then our work at UNESCO in New Delhi, which supports Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, the Maldives, and Nepal and Sri Lanka. So UNESCO, as you probably know, is one of the many United Nations specialized agency. It's based in Paris. This photo here shows our headquarters logo, and we are working in two different prime languages. We work in English, so it's the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization. And we also work in French, so it's the Organisation des Nations Unies pour l'éducation, la science et la culture. The origin of UNESCO is very similar to the origin of many other UN agencies. The World Wars I and II, which were interrupted only by a few years, they caused so much human tragedy that countries in the world decided to form the United Nations, hoping that conflicts could be minimized and wars could be avoided and peace could be fostered. Arguably, this has already contributed to avoiding Third World War. In the same year, in 1945, when the United Nations were formed, UNESCO was formed to foster peace on the platforms of bringing people together in the field of education, science, and culture. It was argued that political agreements, like bilateral agreements as they existed between some of the warring parties in the Second World War, were not enough. It was absolutely required to bring the intellectual and moral solidarity between nations and people to the foreground. Often it is so that countries are in conflict with each other or even at war with each other, and the people, they just don't want it. It's often just the politicians who want it. So UNESCO aims building peace in the minds of men and women and boys and girls. That's the mandate. The definition of peace, of course, needs to be talked about a little bit. The preamble of the Constitution of UNESCO declares, since wars begin in the minds of men and women, it is in the minds of men and women that the defenses of peace must be constructed. As a reminder, we have multiple recent and current crises, including wars and armed battles in Europe, in the Near East, in Asia, in Africa, in the Americas. We had, of course, the COVID-19 pandemic, which is over as a pandemic, but COVID-19, of course, is still there. An equal death and injury toll, like the COVID pandemic, is being caused by road accidents globally. A lot of people don't know that, but that is not over. This pandemic continues all the time. Then we have global challenges like climate change, which impacts food, water, and energy security. We have a massive biodiversity loss in the world, which is very alarming. Funny enough, or strange enough, or sad enough, we are still suffering in many places from air pollution. Here in New Delhi, where I am, we have almost permanent air pollution above the World Health Organization recommendations. Next door in Bangladesh, we have this in Dhaka as well, also in Karachi, other cities, whereas some other cities are quite clean. And we have a massive global plastic pollution. So the importance of peace cannot be underestimated. All these crises are adversely impacting peace. Peace is an absolutely essential element for human survivability and concerns all of us, and it makes us strong, the opposite of vulnerable. The definition of peace that we are using at UNESCO is peace is more than an absence of war. It means justice and equity for all as the basis for living together in harmony and free from violence. Now, but even more so for our children and grandchildren and future generations, peace is of importance. Now, the mandate of UNESCO is very broad. UNESCO has 5 major programs. The largest program that we have is education. It's about mobilizing education so that every boy and girl from all the 8 billion people that we have in the world right now has access to quality education as a human right. This is, of course, our hope. There's a lot of people who don't have access to education. Then in the social and human sciences, we are working on managing social transformations, and learning to live together. We have also the cultural program. Here we are trying to build intercultural understanding through support for cultural diversity. UNESCO has a communication and information program that protects the free flow of information as an essential element for human dignity. And myself, I'm promoting what is printed here in yellow, the natural sciences. We are pursuing scientific cooperation to keep ecosystems and the human life support system intact. Ecosystems, of course, they provide all the air that we breathe, the water that we drink, and the food that we eat. In the science sector, we have three divisions. We have one division that deals with ecology and earth science. We have another division that deals with water science, the hydrological science. We have one division that deals with policy and basic science like biology, chemistry, physics, mathematics, but also with technology and engineering. And we have two more sections in the natural science sector. One is for small island developing states, so-called SIDS states. Here in South Asia, I would like to pinpoint the Maldives. We are supporting the Maldives as the country lowest lying above high tide mark in the world. The Maldives is the lowest country in the world above high tide. We have also a section on links, which supports local and indigenous knowledge. India, of course, is a founding member state of UNESCO since the 4th of November 1946, and basically before India gained independence. Of course, the iconic Taj Mahal that we all know, it is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and it was listed in
Excuse me, Dr. Boer,
Yes.
sorry to interrupt. We can't see your slides changing, as in we can just see the first slide.
Oh, I'm very sorry, but they should have told me that before.
Yeah, sure.
Maybe I need to press escape. Can you say?
Yes, we
can you
can.
see
Yes,
this now?
we can now see the Taj Mahal
Okay.
slide. Yes.
What I will do is let's go like this. Then you can not see it in full screen, but at least you can see it. So
Yes.
India is a founding member of UNESCO since 1946, and the iconic Taj Mahal is a World Heritage Site. There are, I think, 40 or more World Heritage Sites currently in India, and more are coming up. On vulnerabilities, and I have put a picture of a female Indian scientist here lifting her fingers because we don't have enough female scientists participating, especially in the science-based economy in India and in many other countries in the world. So human survivability requires absolutely fresh air to breathe. And believe it or not, there is not even a sustainable development goal developed that has been produced to highlight the importance of air to breathe. We have an SDG for water to drink. We have an SDG for zero hunger, but we have no SDG for air. But then, if we don't have enough air to breathe, after 3 minutes, human living will perish. With water, it takes 3 days. With food, it takes 3 weeks. Human survivability also requires health and well-being. There's an SDG 3 for it. Justice and equity for all as the basis for living together. Unfortunately, human survivability is chronically challenged via the triple planetary crisis, which is a term that we will all hear more and more often in the years to come. The planetary crisis consists of biodiversity loss, climate change, and pollution. Human survivability is also challenged via population dynamics and the blind belief in technology. For population dynamics, let me just remind us all that we have currently 8 billion people on the planet, and we are gearing up to have 10.9 to 11.2 billion people by the end of the century, which should also be the threshold. It should also be the peak. After that, it will go down again, according to credible forecasts. The blind belief in technology, I would just like to mention the blind burning of massive amounts of coal, gas, and oil, which have contributed to climate change. But also the blind belief in technology such as nuclear arms or nuclear power stations. The arms, of course, they have already caused major tragic events some time ago in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, but nuclear power stations have also caused massive disasters in Chernobyl and in Fukushima in Russia and in Japan. But there's other blind beliefs in technology, so we should be a little bit more careful which technology we would like to apply. Then we have the natural and anthropogenic pandemics and natural disasters. I mentioned the road traffic before. And then we have wars and armed conflicts springing up again and again, only benefiting a handful of greedy politicians and the arms industry. Nobody else benefits from these wars and armed conflicts. Human survivability can be strengthened via a concerted global action towards planet and peace, involving all men and women, girls and boys. And if we would involve the women more than we do currently, then we would be able to achieve much more, much faster. Let me now talk a little bit about one of UNESCO's flagship programs for human living in harmony with nature, which is the Biosphere Reserve, the World Network of Biosphere Reserve that exists since 1971. Biosphere reserves are places to apply, test, and demonstrate best practices for human living in harmony with nature. Currently, we are not living in harmony with nature. We are exploiting nature to the degree that nature itself cannot supply the air we breathe, the water we drink, and the food that we need to eat to us anymore. So we are shooting at our own foot. The aim to enhance nature conservation, reduce the environmental footprint, and keep the ecological carrying capacity of our natural ecosystems intact. Biosphere reserves ideally contribute to achieve all Sustainable Development Goals. India currently has 12 UNESCO Biosphere reserves. It's a very good process. India participates since 25 years in the World Network. But then Spain, as a country that fits 6 times into India geographically, has 55 biosphere reserves. Spain, of course, is the world champion. They have more biosphere reserves than any other country. So Spain is number 1, followed by Mexico, Russia, and China and the United States. So there is plenty of room to establish more biosphere reserves in India. But let me just show you them. The first one is Nilgiri. It was established in the year 2000, located in the states of Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, and Kerala. And it's an important biodiversity hotspot with more than 5,800 species of flowering plants. The next biosphere reserve in India is the Gulf of Mannar in the south, opposite Sri Lanka, basically, was established in 2001. It's in Tamil Nadu. It has coral reefs, very rich and productive seagrass beds and mangroves, and it's considered one of the world's richest marine ecosystems. I have put a photo here of the marine dugong. That's one of the 2 sea cow species that still exist in the world, and they are feeding on seagrass beds. The Sundarbans, of course, is the largest standalone mangrove forest in the world. Most of it on Bangladeshi side, the rest of it in India. It's about 60% in Bangladesh, 40% in India, roughly. It was established in 2001 in India as a biosphere reserve. In Bangladesh, we are still working to establish it also as a biosphere reserve. And it's also the largest delta in the world. Nanda Devi in the northwest of India. It was established in 2004. It's in Uttarakhand. It has many endemic species and the highest peak at more than 7,800 meters above sea level, located in the Himalaya chain. There is no crack. It was established in 2009, located in Meghalaya. The biosphere reserve is home to the tiger, leopard, elephant, red panda, and hulock gibbon. Shifting agriculture is the most important economic activity of the local people. Now, talking about people is important when we are talking about biosphere reserves, because biosphere reserves, they only have some core areas which are without people living in it, but they have buffer zones where people must be living in it, and they are encouraged to have sustainable ways of human living in harmony with nature, either ancient ways or modern ways. Then there is Pachmarhi. It was also established in 2009, located in Madhya Pradesh. The biosphere reserve is part of a genetic express highway linking two biodiversity hotspots, the Eastern Himalaya and the Western Ghats. Then there is Similipal, located in Odisha, established also in 2009, and it is characterized by waterfalls and streams and large rivers, and it is home for indigenous people in 1,265 villages. Furthermore, there is Achanakmar Amarkantak, a biosphere reserve established in 2012. It has 27 tribal and non-tribal communities, and they inhabit 418 villages in these dramatic landscapes of Madhya Pradesh and Chhattisgarh. So you can see a consistent progress being made in India. Then we have the Great Nicobar, located in the Union Territory of Andaman and Nicobar Islands. It was established in 2013. The biosphere reserve harbors tropical wet evergreen forests and coastal plains with a rich biodiversity, including 650 species of plants and 1,800 species of fauna, including the endangered marine turtles, for example, the leatherback turtle. Agastya-Mala, then, I believe that's in the very south of India. It was established in 2016 in Kerala. It covers 3,500 square kilometers and encompasses tropical forest ecosystems that function as a genetic reservoir of cultivated plants, including, for example, cardamom, jamun, nutmeg, pepper, and plantain. In Sikkim, then, nestled between the border with China, the border with Bhutan, the border with Nepal, there is the Kanchenjunga Biosphere Reserve. It was established in 2018. It contains some of the highest ecosystems in the world, up to 8,586 meters above sea level, providing habitat, for example, for flagship conservation species like the snow leopard and the Himalaya tar. This biosphere reserve has over 150 glaciers and 73 glacial lakes. And of course, in the times of climate change and currently with the phase of warming, these lakes, they might receive surplus water. And some of these lakes, they burst. And just imagine what that means to the vulnerability of downstream communities when suddenly their rivers are swelling up with unprecedented amounts of fresh water coming down and wiping out whole villages. Finally, there is the 12th biosphere reserve in India is Panna, was established only 4 years ago in Madhya Pradesh, and it comprises protected and minimally disturbed areas with forests, agriculture, water bodies, and settlements, and the area functions as a critical tiger habitat. Of course, many areas in India and in neighboring countries like Myanmar and Thailand are also functioning as critical tiger habitat. Another conservation theme that UNESCO hosts is, of course, the World Natural Heritage Sites. And we also have the UNESCO Global Geoparks. Global geoparks are very similar to biosphere reserves. They are about nature conservation with core areas, and they are about people applying sustainable and environmentally friendly ways of human living. As you can see on this global map, there are not many geoparks, so each red dot is a geopark. There are not many geoparks in the Arctic or the Antarctic, not many in Australia, not many in Africa or Arabia, neither in North America, Central America, or South America. There are only a few, but the vast majority of geoparks is in East and Southeast Asia, in China, in Korea, in Indonesia, in Japan, and countries in that area, and also in Europe. But the other areas that do not have that many geoparks, in particular India, with 7,000 kilometer coastline, with alluvial plains, coastal areas that go all the way up to the very high Himalaya mountains, India has a huge potentiality to establish geoparks that can then also function of areas for geotourism, for geoheritage preservation, and for geoethics. UNESCO Global Geoparks are geographical sites of international geological significance. They are managed with a holistic concept of protection, education, and sustainable development. They combine conservation with sustainable development while involving local communities. Currently, there are 195 global geoparks in 48 countries. India has currently no global geopark, but there is a very, very strong interest among Indian geologists, academicians, and tourism developers to establish geoparks. What we are doing now at UNESCO is, and perhaps we do it as soon as September this year, we will assist India to establish a national coordination mechanism very soon. It needs a national coordination mechanism that should be under the federal government, either with the Ministry of Earth Science, Ministry of Mines, Ministry of Environment, Climate Change and Forests, perhaps with the Ministry of Culture or Ministry of Tourism. That's up for India to decide, but we will call for a meeting with these ministries present and with academicians and geologists present. We will also invite some more experienced people from Iran and from Ireland to assist India to set up a national coordination mechanism so that India can finally start identifying and establishing UNESCO Global Geoparks. There's a huge potential for that. A different form of vulnerability is, of course, pollution. I mentioned that before. I mentioned air pollution. I find it very difficult to believe as a resident in New Delhi that I am robbed of my human right to breathe clean air for 4 months between every November and every February, and that not very much is being done about it except talk. So we have a lot of talk on air pollution in New Delhi every year in the newspapers, but really not enough is being done. What we've done with UNESCO and the United Nations Environment Programme and the World Health Organization, we organized a conference in Faridabad. And that was a conference where we talked about mobilizing biotechnology for clean air. So instead of burning rice and wheat stubble, we could do something else with rice and wheat. We could, for example, convert it biotechnologically into alcohol, into ethanol as a fuel source, or into a pulp, or into insulation materials, and many other things can be done with rice and wheat stubble instead of burning it and let people then inhale the smoke. We have also initiated a plastic initiative. Plastic pollution has become so immense that some people believe that there is now more plastic in the world's oceans than fish. And we have initiated the UNESCO Plastic Initiative, which is being documented on a platform called Quest for Action. So those of you who are interested, please visit the platform Quest for Action. On the right-hand side, you see two people. That is my beloved wife and my youngest son, our youngest son. He had a part of his school curriculum demanded social activities, and what we did, we went together to a randomly selected beach in Thailand some years ago, and we collected over a 100-meter stretch of beach for 1 hour, 240 liters of plastic debris at a randomly selected beach. So that means all the beaches are like that. So you can see that beach is clean now, but believe me, when all this plastic in these 3 bags was on the beach before, so it was quite disgusting. What is even more alarming is that plastic pollution has become so bad that we have the macroplastic going from the cities to the rivers, to the coastlines, to the oceans. The macroplastic, we can try to get it out of the oceans again, but it breaks down into microplastic, and the microplastic, we really don't know how to get it out of the oceans. The alarming thing is that according to university studies carried out in Korea and in Germany, 9 out of 10 people have already microplastic in their digestive system. That means we are continuously eating it, and we really don't know what it is causing, what are the adverse impacts to our body, to our health. What is more alarming is nanoplastic. Nanoplastic is after microplastic breaks further down into small particles. And according to a study of the Vrije University in Amsterdam in the Netherlands, we have 9 out of 10 people having nanoplastic in the blood system, clogging up the blood system, but perhaps also releasing non-desired chemicals, such as formalin, for example, softeners into the bloodstream of humans, most certainly not enhancing our health. The recent products from the UNESCO Science Unit in the New Delhi office includes this brochure here called Pockets of Hope, where we are depicting the biosphere reserves in India, Sri Lanka, and the Maldives. Sri Lanka has 4 biosphere reserves. The Maldives have 3. So in comparison to the size of India, they have many more biosphere reserves. Bhutan and Bangladesh and Nepal, they have none. So we encourage them to have that. So if you would like to have this Pockets of Hope brochure, I can make that available to you, either in print or as a PDF. And we are currently producing a new book with the same title, Pockets of Hope in Central and South Asia, that will depict biosphere reserves in Iran, Pakistan, India, Bhutan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Maldives, India, of course, and then Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, and Turkmenistan. And those countries that do not yet have biosphere reserves, we will perhaps portray areas that could become biosphere reserves in the future. Then we also have a series of books produced. They will very soon be launched. It's the Water, Energy, Food Security Nexus in Asia Pacific. We have 1 volume dedicated for the Pacific that includes Australia, New Zealand, Japan, and many small island developing states in the Pacific. We have also 1 volume for East and Southeast Asia, and we have 1 volume here for where we are in South and Central Asia. I believe it is open access, so everybody can access it for free without any cost. And I will receive some copies, some hard copies. So those of you who would like to work with it, you can drop me an email at b.boer@unesco.org and request a hard copy. So if you want that, please contact me and I will try to make hard copies available, but you have to pay the postal costs for that because I don't have a budget for that. In Bhutan, we have a water quality monitoring project. We are monitoring the water quality before they go into the capital city of Bhutan in Thimphu, and then the quality after it comes out. That might be enhanced in the future with biological elements such as E. coli and Giardia. And in New Delhi, with one of our partners here is the National Institute for Urban Affairs, NUA, we have developed an urban water body diagnostic tool and capacity building training, basically trying to restore urban wetlands to fulfill their function for carbon sequestration and filtering air and evaporating air, so that they can also have a cooling effect on urban settings. On women in science, we have produced this book. It's called A Braided River. So the braided river, like the Brahmaputra, unlike a meandering river which runs in a very clear stream, braided rivers, the stream changes all the time. So we took the title as a metaphor for the difficulties that Indian women are facing when they want to become scientists. Indian women are participating actually better than the men and the boys on primary education, secondary education, and tertiary education, but then it drops from 52% to 28% after tertiary education is over, and then it's 75% men and only 28%, 72% men, only 28% women. We would like to have, of course, we would like to retain the men, but we would like to have more women participating in science. So again, this is available as a PDF. Those of you who would like to have a copy, please let me know. Another recent product is this poster series here. It consists of 27 posters, 8 introductory posters, and 17 posters dedicated to the Sustainable Development Goals. It's called Climate Science Literacy. It's available in English, in Spanish, in Thai, in Chinese, in Mongolian. The German version has been even uploaded by the German Ministry of Education for free download. And we have it also already available in 7 languages that are widely spoken in India. So if any one of you would like to have a copy of this, I will provide you the website where you can download it for free. And you can also print it either on paper or on aluminum plates. And on aluminum plates, you can perhaps establish as a permanent exhibition in universities or in schools or colleges or elsewhere, to allow the general public to understand a little bit more about what climate really is, what's the difference between climate and weather, what's climate change, why is it dangerous for us, and how much of climate change is being caused by people and how much is being caused by nature. Finally, we have something that is called UNESCO Green Academy. So we reached out to a number of schools in Jajpur in Odisha, in Colombo in Sri Lanka, in Abu Dhabi and Ras Al Khaimah in the United Arab Emirates, in St. John in the US Virgin Islands, and in many different cities in Ethiopia, including Addis Ababa. So there we want to establish or retrofit existing schools so that the schoolyard will become more environmentally friendly, that the school buildings will become more environmentally friendly, the behavior of the students and the teachers with the reach out to the community. It's basically about rainwater harvest, gray water recycling, black water recycling to enhance or to reduce water vulnerabilities, to apply clean energy to reduce energy vulnerabilities, and to establish school gardens for the production of food and amenity plants to reduce food vulnerabilities, and to enhance climate resilience and knowledge of students and teachers and the community. We have also a global activity, which is an exhibition on mangrove ecosystems. It's an exhibition with 125 banners showcasing mangrove ecosystems in 123 countries and territories. In India, for example, we have 4,300 square kilometers of mangroves. Mangroves are of immense importance for the coastal protection against tsunamis, against storm surges, against tropical cyclones, and mangroves are highly productive and they lock away the debris that comes from the biomass that they produce in the soil for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. So with that, mangroves are being considered a blue carbon ecosystem. And we have lost almost half of the world's mangroves. We need to bring them all back so that they can also function as a blue carbon ecosystem and mitigate climate change. With that, I come to an end of my presentation. In conclusion, there is enormous potential for more biosphere reserves in India. There is a huge potential for establishing geoparks in India, and that can be related to activities to reduce siting vulnerabilities. And now, if you allow me, I will unshare, and then I should be very happy to listen to your comments and try to answer to some questions that you have. Is that okay?
That's fine.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Boer.
Shall I unshare the presentation?
Yeah. Atul will now helm the question and comment section, and you could, of course, unshare now, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am. And thank you so much, Dr. Boer, for that wonderful talk on everything that UNESCO is doing to tackle environmental degradation and vulnerability in a broader sense. We have questions and comments from the audience. Roy has a question. Please go ahead, Roy.
Thank you, Dr. Boer, for the enlightening presentation. I wish to bring to your attention an issue which I feel has been overlooked. Namely, it's the the invasive species being introduced via the aquarium trade, which is unregulated. And this issue has a history in India. As early as the 19th century, British colonizer Major Robert Mayer introduced water hyacinth to India because he fancied it. It's known as the world's most troublesome weed, and it takes up a large amount of fresh water, almost a tenth of the fresh water that it occupies, and it carries mosquitoes and other vectors. It clogs waterways. More recently, the 250-hectare Vandiur Lake in Madurai, Tamil Nadu, it had its biomass almost monopolized by a species called the Amazon sawfin catfish, which was again brought through the unregulated aquarium trade, where hobbyists would irresponsibly release these plants and animals into an alien ecosystem. And they would also cause changes to the local biodiversity. Some of these changes more serious than others. Eating up certain species, thereby delimiting the useful roles these species used to play. And I feel this issue has not been given the importance it deserves to. And I would love to know your take on it.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Roy. I am wholeheartedly with you. I agree 100% with you. Exotic species should never be introduced, especially not just to have them swim around in aquaria and then some genius people come and take them and put them into the natural ecosystems, not knowing if they cause damage there or not. So UNESCO's take on that is UNESCO is absolutely against the introduction of alien invasive species into any natural ecosystems, whether they are fish, whether they are non-native species of shrimp, or whether they are any other animals or bacteria or fungi or actually plants. If you go through any city in India, for example, one of the most prominent trees that you will find everywhere, from the south of India all the way to the Manali area at the very least, you can find a tree that is known as mesquite. Its scientific name is Prosopis juliflora. And it has been introduced from Central America by foresters many, many years ago. And it now occurs everywhere between India, Pakistan, all the way to the south, to the Arabian Peninsula, through Africa, all the way to South Africa. And it's spreading out. It's outcompeting native trees, and it's causing a lot of economic damage. And it's very, very difficult, if not impossible, to get rid of it again. So UNESCO's take is we are very much against that. We are in support of the alien invasive species list, that has been compiled by the International Union for Conservation of Nature, IUCN. And if anybody wants UNESCO support on activities that address alien invasive species, then at the very least, we would be listening to you. If we have capacity, we would also be willing to discuss it with you further to see if we can do anything jointly within the capacity of staff, time, and financial resources that we have.
Thank you, sir.
Anybody else would like to comment on or make some suggestions, recommendations, questions? The
Dr.
UNESCO
Boer,
chair vulnerability
yes,
has raised the hand. So
yes, if
I
I
don't
may
know if
ask.
I'm sharing this session or somebody else. I thought I was just the
Yeah, no,
speaker. So maybe you
no,
should
if I
go
may
ahead.
ask, yes, if I may ask a question, Dr. Boer. Um, my question was, how does UNESCO work with local governments, as in governments at the local level, not the central government, but at the local, say, the district or the state level, to as in on issues such as environmental degradation or forest policies or even farming laws or policies? As in, are there instances where you may have to disagree with the government's policies, or are there instances of conflict between what the UNESCO's policies are and what the laws of the land are? Since you work in countries across the world, uh, what challenges do you face in working at the most basic, the most local level as far as the environment is concerned?
Yes. Yes, we are working with the federal government. We are working with the state governments. We are also working with counties, with provinces, with municipalities. We can also work with individual people. We can listen to anybody except for the arms and drugs industries. So we work with academia, with governments, with NGOs. We are trying to bring countries together, but on the local level, on the provincial, on the state level, for example. Remember when I presented the 12 biosphere reserves in India? Now, these 12 biosphere reserves are located in at least 12 different states. Recently, we had a conference that we organized together with the Indian Men and the Biosphere, the National Committee in Chennai. And we invited all of the biosphere reserve managers from the different states to come and to present their challenges and their hopes and ask questions. On policies, we are not there to disagree with policies of states. What we can do, if a state comes to us and asks us, can you assist us? We want to analyze our policies. Are they good enough? Can we do it better? Then we can come in, and the state can call us, and they can say, we want UNESCO to assist us to conduct a policy analysis. We can also produce policy advice. That we can also do by ourselves. We've done that by ourselves, but normally we do that after considering the advice from specialists. In my case, for example, when it comes to the development of biosphere reserves, the identification or the establishment or management of biosphere reserves, geoparks, World Natural Heritage Sites, and also in the case of urban water management, water resources management, training people. But we are not a police that goes to government and says you are doing this wrong and you are doing that wrong. That's not our mandate. Our mandate is to assist them if they want to get it better.
Dr. Boer, I have an observation built on
Yes,
what
please.
you've said. Then this is the construction of bioreserves. Surely you have encountered in your time and working with this the usual argument about, say, human lives versus, say, plants and animals. That if you are earmarking areas and zones for animals, then sometimes it cuts into, say, human sustainability their practices, their cultural practices, even their very livelihood. And this is a common theme in the global south in particular, where there's a lot of pressure on the land, whether it's for agriculture or housing. And then when you say you have to delineate land for making sure that the animal or plant life is conserved, then it runs into other kinds of problems. It also has to do with this slightly dated argument now about the environmentalism of the poor, which I'm sure you've also encountered, Jean Dries and others. So how does your office or your team deal with this supposed conflicts when it comes to setting up bioreserves?
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Pramod, for the question. And it is indeed a question that comes up all the time. Now, the UNESCO concept, let me just talk about the biosphere reserves, not of the other concepts. Let me just talk the biosphere reserves. It's about people and nature. It's not about the emotional conservation of a beautiful butterfly or a bird or a frog. And an animal lover comes and says, oh, a beautiful frog, or wow, but a butterfly, we need to conserve this forest. People out. People must go out. It's not like that. Biosphere reserves are so. The community will be involved when it is being decided that the community wants to have a biosphere reserve, and the community wants to have a sense of ownership of the biosphere reserve, and the community participates in writing up the management plan of the biosphere reserve, and also writing up the zonation of the biosphere reserve. The biosphere reserve consists of one or several core areas for strict nature conservation. That means no people, but they can be small areas. Nature also must have a space to continuously develop and provide ecosystem services that we need. Outside the core areas are then much larger areas. Those are the buffer zones. The buffer zones, they should have villages in them, and it's all about people. It's about people living in harmony with nature. Those people, they should conduct agriculture. They should conduct honey production. They should collect non-wooden items from the forest. They should also collect wooden items from the forest. But if they cut trees, then they should replant the trees, and not in a monocultural area method. They should plant it in a natural way, in harmony with nature. So they should conduct ecological forestry. Ecological forestry is something that hasn't yet really grasped the intention of the international environmental community. But I visited personally some forests that were based on ecological forestry, and I had tears in my eyes of joy, because finally some foresters with an ecological education, they managed the forest the way it should be, namely without damaging the forest and without only short-term profit. They were looking into long-term profit. So communities have to be involved in the zonation, in the activities that they have. We can provide training to them on how best to do that. And once you are in a biosphere reserve, you become automatically a member of a family consisting of 748 biosphere reserves in the world. So you could reach out, for example, to say China, or to Germany, or to Chile, or to Congo, or any other country that you know they have a biosphere reserve where they are managing an aspect that interests you very, very much, very well. And then you can say, look, Professor XYZ from Congo, could you please come to India and have a look at our biosphere reserve? What would you do based on your experience? What have you done in Congo or in Uganda or in Germany or France or anywhere that we might also consider trying within our own local context? That doesn't mean that you will copy and paste. That will not work, because there are different ecosystem constraints, different climates, different ecosystem components. But yes, the people should be at the forefront of biosphere reserves. Biosphere reserves are about people. Of course, they are also about conserving the bird and the butterfly and avoiding releasing exotic fish species into the streams. But it's
Thank you.
really
That's very interesting, and I'm fascinated by the idea that you are moving from monocultures to nature to actually what is multinatural in some sense. Also about different cultural practices and how they have to fit into the biosphere is the overall philosophical. I have not met the term ecological forestry before, so that's something for us to work with and think through as well. So thank you for that. Over to you, Atul.
Thank you, sir. Are there any more questions, comments, observations on Dr. Boer's talk? If there are no more questions, we could perhaps wind up the session with a formal vote of thanks by Professor Anna Kurian, who is a faculty fellow of the UNESCO chair and a professor at the Department of English, University of Hyderabad. Anna.
Thank you, Atul. And thank you, first of all, of course, to Dr. Boer for spending some time with us, for educating us, I think, quite a lot, because several of us here on this call did not know the kinds of things that UNESCO is doing, actively working on the ground. I mean, our acquaintance with UNESCO is rather limited, even if we do have a UNESCO chair. So thank you so much for the education and for the time that you gave. Also, of course, for taking the questions. We are, of course, also grateful to the University of Hyderabad because they have renewed their lease on the Google Suite so that we could record this and put it up. Last time we had this horrible experience where we wanted to record a talk and there was no recording possible. So this time it's been recorded. And so we are very grateful to our university. And of course, to all those who join us without fail. I think special mention should be made of Roy and the Reading Room group, which turns up without fail for all the talks that we host. So thank you, everybody, but especially Roy and the Reading Room group. I, of course, have to thank Atul and Pramod and all the rest of us here. Thank you so much, Dr. Boer, and we hope to have you over once again, maybe this time in person someday.
Thank you, Dr. Kurian. That's very kind of you. Thank you, Dr. Pramod, for inviting me, and thank you, everybody, for your interest, for taking your time to listen to me, and thank you for your kind words that you got something out of it. So this is a beginning. Pramod, you and I, we met each other recently. Now we met each other again online. I have a little contribution for the book that you are publishing very soon. So let us take this as a start for international cooperation. And if you have any desire to be connected to other UNESCO chairs outside India, please call on me and I will do whatever I can to assist you to also reach out to Ethiopia, to Europe, to wherever you want. So many thanks and best of luck to continue this very, very interesting series of seminars for which you have invited me. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, and bye-bye.